It started out as a pretty normal routine third pregnancy until February 5th, 2008, when we went in for what we thought was a fairly routine 20-week ultrasound. It was our second 20-week ultrasound because the first one revealed things that they were describing as contradictory. We thought everything was going fine until the doctor came in, pulled up a stool, sat down in front of Silvano and me and said, "Things look very grim." After that, he went through a laundry list of things that were wrong. She had no kidneys, no bladder, her stomach was small, she had numerous problems with the heart and the brain, and they just went on and on and on about everything that was wrong with our baby. We spent the next several days talking to a number of specialists at Johns Hopkins. We met with genetic counselors, and everyone was telling us that there was no hope. And as they were talking about options with us, it seemed like the only option everyone wanted to talk about was to terminate the pregnancy. As doctors at Johns Hopkins were telling us that there was no hope, we were also praying to God that He would give us strength through this experience and also that He would heal her. I remember telling friends that I didn't know if God would heal our baby, but I knew that He could heal our baby, and that we didn't want to terminate the pregnancy. We wanted to give God the opportunity to heal her if that was His will. On February 15th, we went in and we spoke with another physician, and it quickly became apparent that she wanted us to terminate the pregnancy. I thought we were going in to talk about options, and she was telling us really that there was no hope for our baby. I vividly remember her looking at me and saying, "If you're waiting for a miracle, it's not going to happen." We thanked her for her advice, and we told her that we were decided to continue with the pregnancy and that we'd like to have a couple more tests, which she did agree to. We went in for a third ultrasound, and the ultrasound tech was really amazing. He was calm, and I really don't think he knew everything that was going on. And he began to flippantly point things out on the screen. And he started by saying, "Oh, there's the baby's bladder." And I remember looking at Silvano and looking back at him and saying, "The bladder? The baby doesn't have a bladder." And he's like, "Sure it does. It's right there." And then he started pointing out things like amniotic fluid, and I was like, "Fluid? There's no fluid around the baby." At that point, I think he started to realize that this was not your routine ultrasound, and he called in for a doctor. And they started looking at my chart and looking at the screen and looking at the chart and looking at my screen. And after a long, silent hour, the doctor looked at me and he said, "Don't quote me on this, but I don't see any of the problems that they say exist." At that point, we were amazed. We had spent about 10 days praying that God would heal our baby girl, and it seemed as if He was doing just that. The doctors weren't quite as optimistic, and for the next several weeks we went in for numerous ultrasounds and numerous tests. And as while they were all very pessimistic, we prayed with our friends and our family, and we had hope that God was in fact healing our little girl. On June 3rd, 2008, Isabella Grace was born, and much to the amazement of the Johns Hopkins medical team, she needed nothing at birth. They simply swaddled her in a blanket and carried her out of the operating room. And 1 week later, Isabella came home. A Johns Hopkins physician once told me that if I was waiting for a miracle, it wasn't going to happen. Well, it happened.